Damn, that class looks easy.
2 seconds later.
Can I get some heals? Oh my. You probably saw these difficulty ratings in game, but I'm gonna have to ask you to toss them in the bin. There are a lot of videos that cover new updates and design notes, but there aren't any updated guides for newer players on how to choose the class they unlock first. And that's why I'm here to help. I'm not going to explain in detail what these skills do. All AQ3D people read. Every AQ3D player knows exactly what their classes do. I'll be explaining the classes based on the order they're listed, but in a way that'll help you choose which best fits your playstyle. I'll start with the 4 classes everyone starts the game with and move on to the tier 1 class, the tier 2 class, and finally the paid class. The difficulty ratings are how easy the class is to play in my opinion, with 5 being difficult and 1 being easy. The solo and group rating would be how viable I think the class is in that given situation, with 1 being not very viable and 5 being extremely suitable. To kick things off, we have your standard melee class across all MMORPGs, the Warrior. The Warrior will be your bread and butter damage dealer for the majority of your early game life if you are free to play. It's a melee based class that has great AoE skills and a very handy armor break capability that doubles as a tank skill. When in combat, using skills will grant you Fury, which fills up the Warrior's resource bar and directly affects each skill in some way. Your ultimate skill does heavy burst damage and your cross skill deals AoE damage. As a warrior, you'll want to prioritize your armor breaking skill Whirlwind, which reduces incoming damage, temporarily makes you immune to crowd control effects, and adds a small layer of protection when fully stacked on Fury. This makes the class very strong, solo, and great in group content. My difficulty rating for the warrior is a solid 2 out of 5 as it's a very easy class to get used to. For solo play it's a 3 out of 5, and for group content it's a 5 out of 5. Next up is your rogue. The Rogue is a melee-based damage dealer that relies heavily on the use of poison to deal damage over time to enemies. This class focuses on dealing damage to a single target, taking it down quickly before moving on to the next. Its survivability decreases significantly when facing multiple enemies at the same time, so as a rogue you'll want to choose your fights carefully. There's not much to say about this class. You rush in, get some poison stacks in, convert those poison stacks to bigger poison stacks for more damage, and then continue to apply more poison. Your ultimate skill applies a full stack of poison and resets the cooldown on your poison conversion skill. 10 points if you can count the amount of times I said you would poison. Your cross skill slows and weakens the enemy, and your passive causes your damage over time to do more damage to enemies if they have lower health. If there's an overarching theme here, other than the cross skill, it's definitely that someone loved green and was very trigger happy with damage over time skills. I am mostly kidding, the rogue is a great class for solo play early game, but doesn't really perform as well in group content or party play. My difficulty rating for the rogue would be a 2 out of 5 since it has a fairly simple skill rotation and doesn't take much getting used to. For solo play, it's like a 4 out of 5, and group content is a 3 out of 5. Moving on with the list of starter classes, you have the Mage. The Mage is your standard magic-based caster class that deals damage from afar. As a master of the elements, the Mage has incredible DPS and lots of crowd control abilities. But as a trade-off, however, it has lower survivability and skills that will require you to stand still during the casting. The Mage's passive is Ley Lines, which increases your cast speed, and your ultimate skill does AoE damage, but your cross skill deals damage over time to a single target. As a mage, you'll be dealing damage with your fire skill and restoring mana while applying crowd control using your ice skill. In my opinion, the class isn't really viable as a solo player in the early game, but I've seen people use it in ways that I couldn't even dream of, so sky's the limit. My difficulty rating for the mage would be a 3 out of 5 as it does take a bit of getting used to. For solo play, it's a 2 out of 5, and group content is a 5 out of 5. The final starter class is the Healer. This class deals the biggest damage out of all the beginner classes, and I am 99% joking. The Healer does exactly what you expect it to do. By design, it's a supporting caster based class. This class focuses on keeping you and your allies alive as you take on enemies. Its survivability is undeniably the highest of all the starter classes while still being able to hold its own against most early game enemies. Your ultimate skill is a buff that refreshes and reduces cooldowns while temporarily increasing all healing received. Your cross skill increases the healing power of your skills and items used. Your passive allows you to charge your ultimate faster by healing allies. Earlier I joked about Healer being the biggest damage, but for every 4th auto attack it deals bonus damage and restores your mana, but you will need to prioritize how you spend your mana as casting too many skills in succession can leave you in a rough spot. While you can play the Healer class solo, it's much more enjoyable and necessary in group content or party play. My difficulty rating for the Healer would be a 3 out of 5 as it has a slightly different playstyle from the other classes, but it doesn't have too much of a learning curve. For solo play it's a 4 out of 5 and group content is a 5 out of 5. Now that we've covered the 4 starting classes available to you from the get-go, let's jump into the classes that need to be unlocked. These can be unlocked by earning class tokens unique to that class from a daily class quest given by that class's specific NPC or trainer. Alternatively, if you don't want to wait or grind, you can unlock these using Dragon Crystals. The first unlockable class you will encounter is the Ranger. The Ranger is a range-based DPS class with crowd control ability. In my opinion, it is the best AoE DPS class in the game and worth unlocking first. The Ranger relies heavily on timing and placement of his skills in relation to your enemies. When in combat or moving, you will gain focus. Focus fills up the Ranger's resource bar, and when filled, your next auto attack will crit and grant swiftness. Your ultimate skill turns your auto attack into AoE damage for a short period, and your cross skill helps you get out of the way of enemies. As a Ranger, you'll want to prioritize trapping your enemies using a trap, as your passive allows you to deal increased damage to trapped enemies. This helps increase the Ranger's survivability and make it a generally solid class for solo play when facing multiple enemies. My difficulty rating for the Ranger would be a 3 out of 5, as it's a very easy to pick up and play class, but you will need to get used to timing and placement of his skills. For solo play, it's a 4 out of 5, and for group content, it is a 5 out of 5. Next on the list is the fearsome DragonSlayer. The DragonSlayer is a melee-based DPS class with silencing, armor breaking, and damage over time capabilities. This class is made for slaying dragons, and as such, its passive allows you to deal more damage to dragons. The DragonSlayer is viable for solo play and in groups due to its versatility. Your ultimate skill deals heavy damage based on your target's health, and your cross skill breaks armor. When in combat, the DragonSlayer earns determination that fills up its resource bar. Determination is consumed above 50% and adds additional effects to your skills. As a DragonSlayer, you will mostly be dealing single target damage. At 50 determination, your ultimate attack deals AoE damage, but you may want to prioritize using your determination to silence or armor break your enemies. My difficulty rating for the DragonSlayer would be a 4 out of 5, as it does have a small learning curve. For solo play, it's a 4 out of 5, and for group content, it's also a 4 out of 5. Coming in for the steal next is the Pirate. Now, this is where I get to make a joke about being a pirate, and I am from the Caribbean. Yeah, that's how we say it. We say Caribbean, not Caribbean. I don't know. Anyway, do you like to gamble while in combat? No? Well, if you want to use guns in AQ3D, you're gonna have to. All jokes aside, the Pirate is a solid range DPS class with a very simple playstyle. The class is great for solo play and can be useful in group content and party-based content. Your ultimate skill deals burst damage while briefly applying a stun to the enemy. Your cross skill deals burst damage with a guaranteed chance to land a crit. As a pirate, you use guns. Your resource bar is more or less the bullets used for your skill attacks, which need to be reloaded when they run out. Your hardest hitting skill has a chance to appear when you use Bullet Storm, but is always triggered by using your final bullet. My difficulty rating for the Pirate will be a 1 out of 5, as it's possibly the easiest class to play in AQ3. For solo play, it's a 4 out of 5, and for group content, it's a 4 out of 5. Illuminating the list next is the Paladin. Like most MMOs, your Paladin is your traditional tanky class that focuses on protecting and healing allies while dealing some damage. This class also deals extra damage to undead enemies, or at least it's supposed to when it's not bugged. The Paladin is really fun for both solo play and group-based content. Your ultimate skill deals burst damage while briefly stunning the enemy, and your cross skill deals damage over time while healing an ally with the lowest health. As a Paladin, your resource bar will consume mana, which is used anytime you cast a skill. You'll have access to a skill that shields you or your ally from incoming damage for a period of time, and an ability that deals AoE damage while healing you or your ally, making you a very valuable asset to any team but still being able to survive as a solo player. My difficulty rating for Paladin will be a 3 out of 5, as you do need to know when exactly to use your skills and in what order to be the most effective. For solo play, it's a 3 out of 5, as its damage output isn't that high. For group-based content, it's a 5 out of 5, as it's a very solid class. Siphoning your attention span away, next on the list is the Necromancer. Quick, before we go any further, tell me down in the comments what your favorite class in AQ3D is, or what class would you like to see in game. While you're there, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like this video. Now that your attention span is renewed, let's talk about the Necromancer. The Necromancer is a ranged DPS class that, as the name suggests, summons the power of the undead in the form of souls to deal damage and restore health, and skeletons to do your bidding. While it would be nice to have more control over your minions, the Necromancer's summons automatically target the nearest enemy and can swap the aggro to them instead of you. Your skills offer an array of options to damage and debuff your enemies from afar, increasing your chances of survival. Your ultimate summons a large skeleton that has the ability to taunt more than one enemy and deal damage. Your cross skill is very useful for crowd control, as it risks an enemy in place for a short period of time. My difficulty rating for the Necromancer would be a 4 out of 5, as there is a learning curve for when and how to use the skills. For solo play is a 4 out of 5, and group content is a 5 out of 5. When I was younger, if you did a Google search for ninjas, it would tell you that they cannot be found. But in AQ3D, the ninja is surprisingly the only class with an accurate in-game difficulty rating. Don't ask me how to play the class, I'll just tell you what it does. Lol. The ninja is a high single target DPS class that utilizes a chain of skills to control damage output, buffs, and debuffs. You have 3 elements to manage: earth, wind, and fire, each changing what the other skills do. Essentially, instead of having 3 skills, you have the potential to cycle through 27. Don't quote me on the math, I'm bad at math on Tuesdays. Your ultimate attack does burst damage, and your cross skill allows you to drastically increase your movement speed for a short space of time. Since there's not much else I can see about the class, let's give it a rating and move on. My difficulty rating for the ninja would definitely be a 5 out of 5, as again, you do need to know which skill does what and when to use it based on the situation that you're in. It's genuinely a fun class to play though, once you get the hang of it. For solo play, it's a 4 out of 5 as its damage output and versatility is pretty high. For group content, it's a 3 out of 5 as there are other classes that can be used for more DPS and debuffs. Moglomancer is Moon's favorite class, and incidentally the class with the coolest skin in game. I mean, look at this. Anyway, your Moglomancer is a powerhouse of a support class that can make or break party play. We're not talking about PvP in this guide because I'm staying in my lane and talking about PvE. A Moglomancer has the power to summon one of 3 Moglin allies at a time, each offering a unique buff to yourself or to friendly targets nearby. The TLDR of what you can do with your skills is buff crit, silence enemies, and regen mana or heal allies with each hit. If that's not enough, based on your choice of Moglin, even your ultimate attack's buff changes. Your ultimate attack deals burst damage in a straight line to all targets within that line. Your cross skill is a crowd control that freezes and slows enemies for a short duration. It's one of the most used cross skills for clearing mobs. My difficulty rating for the Moglomancer will be a 3 out of 5, as you do need to know when exactly to use which Moglin in order for them to be most effective. For solo play, it's a 3 out of 5 as his damage output isn't that high, and for group content, it's a 5 out of 5 as it's a very solid class. You like saying swing when you kill enemies? No, neither do I, because that sounds dumb. But if you ever want to, using Samurai class is your best bet. Samurai is my personal favorite class. It's a hybrid melee range DPS class with by far one of the best DPS in game at the moment. What makes the Samurai a powerhouse is its unique passive. The passive basically grants the ability to gain a stack each time you land an attack, stacking all the way up to 50. Each stack grants a buff to your attack speed and physical attack. Your skills change based on the stance you're in. Your first skill deals damage with extra damage on your third cast. Your second skill changes your stance and can be used to either close distance or put distance between you and an enemy. The final skill deals a lot more damage to all targets under 40% in its line of attack. Your ultimate is a buff that drastically increases your attack speed and temporarily increases the damage of your third skill. Your cross skill is a JoJo reference, but I mean, everything is a JoJo reference. My difficulty rating for Samurai would be a 5 out of 5, as it does have a heavy learning curve and landing the third skill requires being in tune with your in-game movement mechanics. For solo play, it's a 5 out of 5 as its damage output is insane. For group content, it's 5 out of 5 for the same reason. The only tier 2 class for some reason after the game being out for how long is the Berserker. Now, the Berserker does exactly what you expect from a class with that name. The Berserker is a close range melee based DPS class that deals more damage as its health decreases. It's a tier 2 warrior class, meaning you need a rank 10 warrior before you can unlock the Berserker. Being a tier 2 class is expected to need some experience to play. You need to be able to efficiently manage your HP while maximizing your damage output. Almost all of your skills are burst DPS skills, with the exception of the third skill, which can be cast a second time to restore HP with each auto attack. Your ultimate is a buff that drastically increases your movement, attack speed, and your crit rate for a short duration of time. Your cross skill is another buff that increases your haste. There's a lot more I can say about the Berserker, but I'll cut it short there for now. My difficulty rating for Berserker would be a 4 out of 5, as it's a high risk, high reward class. For solo play, it's a 4 out of 5 as it's only outclassed by Samurai, and for group content, it's a 4 out of 5 for the same reason. Finally, this is where I get to be toxic with the pay to win. I'm kidding, don't cancel me. The Guardian is a tank-based class that has a bit of everything. It has a very high sustain while being able to heal allies and deal fairly decent damage. Its unique passive grants it damage reduction bonuses, further solidifying its role as a tank. The Guardian specializes in taunting enemies, so party members are free to deal damage unhindered. The Guardian's resource bar uses mana to cast skills, so mana management is key to survival. Your ultimate deals burst damage while granting you increased protection, and your cross skill taunts the enemy with 100% guarantee to take the aggro. Being a paid class, the Guardian actually is fairly balanced in comparison to the other classes, as it offers no unfair advantage. The Guardian upgrade also allows you the ability to play through the Guardian exclusive content and access the Guardian exclusive drops, travel forms, pets, cosmetics, and much more. This isn't a sponsored video, but I'd very much recommend upgrading to Guardian if you can, as it'll make your AQ3D experience a lot more manageable and enjoyable. My difficulty rating for the Guardian would be a 2 out of 5 because it's a very easy class to pick up and use from an early level. For solo play, it's a 4 out of 5 as its damage output isn't that high, but the survivability is great. For group content, it's a 5 out of 5 as it's a very solid class with great taunting ability. Now, that's a wrap. If you made it this far, let me know what your favorite class is. You'll notice that I left out resource bar information, specific use cases for some classes. That was intentional, so you can go check it out in game for yourselves. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and an emoji in the comments. It helps the channel out and motivates me to create more content. Until the next time, stay safe, be happy, and meow.